us, Boycott Novell is everything wrong with open source. I mean, these are very strong statements. I mean, if it's not a hate site, why are people
it was very
making those statements?
You said these statements, the sources of the statements, sometimes you have to look at them as well. It's very controversial as a site, obviously, because the companies it deals with aren't going to be entirely happy. It's simple enough when you run a certain news site and you cover certain issues, certain companies, and you say positive things or just recite the conventional thinking, you know, just kind of agreeing with whatever is being said at the press releases and basically all the spin doctrine which comes from the companies. When you try to get out of the framework where you have a mainstream thought which has been encouraged by the media, I would give as an example things like the Windows 7 campaign and the whole thing, that, you know, the hype which is being generated using lots of PR agencies. When you have all that, it's very difficult to go against that because people are being reinforced with certain imposed illusions. And in this case, if you're looking at certain people whose interests are tied to these illusions, in the case of Novell, they would like to say, you know, we are this excellent company, great results, and they want people to recite this. If you actually go against that, and if you actually show the other side of the story, it's quite obvious certain people won't be happy about that.
I mean, do you believe that it really is people who've just got an axe to grind? I mean, I have to say, and I thought that would be the case in some situations, but I know a bunch of the people who follow me on Twitter, and I dug through the comments on Boycott Novell to see if I could find any evidence of them, and some of them have been on there, but the majority of the negative comments that I received weren't with anyone who's demonstrated any public bias towards the project. So do you think it's just a personal bias that they have?
I think there is a possibility of misinterpretation because various people do try to poison against the site. And the capacity of these people, if you have just me and myself and a few other people trying to get the message out, and against us we have these, you know, full-time employees of certain companies and the friends that they have, they can tell their story as well. And one of the stories they might want to tell is not necessarily the story that the company tells, but more of personal attacks on the person who wants to tell the opposite side of the story. What tends to happen then is it's easier to attack the person than to actually defend a certain message, and this is what tends to happen.
But even when you search for Boycott Novell, even when you look on Google, if you do a search for Boycott Novell on Google, you see a lot of people attacking the actual site as opposed to the person. I mean, it seems like, I'm not going to deny there's some personal kind of grudges against you, but there seems to be also just a general grudge against the project. I mean, do you believe that that's just you, or do you believe that that's you by association with the project?
I wouldn't exactly expect people to write anything that's just coverage of the site itself or the project itself, with the headline containing the name of the project, because naturally you don't really see many articles about, say, Rocklaw or about some Ubuntu sites, for example. What you tend to see in websites is certain statements about a messenger or about a project or about a development of some sort. So in this case, I don't really see any headline being posted, some sort of message that's just praising the website with the name as a sort of a promotional thing. But we do have the followers that actually keep track of the site, and you probably have to descend to the level where you can actually see that the site that we run actually says certain things about Novell, and not all of them are going to be positive, obviously. And the statements we have to say about Novell are not trying to market anything. So lots of projects actually try to market something. So they tend to have reviews, and they tend to have things like some product that they released. And we don't have that. Okay, so people tend to write about us when there is some kind of a resistance to the site. And actually, if you look closer, you'll find that there are some positive things as well. It's not as you put it, that everything's just a protest against
let's talk about the mission of the site. Is it to boycott Novell? Is it to expose Microsoft as a monopolist? Is it to scare people away or move people away from what you call dangerous technology, like, say, mono? All three?
Well, it's really a combination of explanations, and we don't necessarily recite the message that you need to kind of avoid certain products that you buy for a price, because that's supposed to be sort of implied when people realize the implications of them buying certain products. And I will say that I think the explanations themselves can sometimes inform people, especially when they try to find specific information, say by Googling the web. And they already have some certain convictions beforehand. So if they do try to find out what the issues are with mono, they might be able to find the answer to that. We don't try to kind of preach in the sense that we don't try to provide people explanations from scratch, because that would just, that can be addressed in just one post per issue.
In fact, you're not really calling for a boycott, or are you?
Sorry?
Are you calling for a boycott, though? There is an action that you would...
Yeah, I think it goes back such a long way, almost 3 years ago, that the message is already kind of understood. People kind of know the issues with the Novell deal. They actually talk about it quite freely because they actually understood the issues. And trying to kind of, beat a dead horse and trying to explain to them again what the issue is with the deal is not going to be most fruitful. So what we try to do now is to actually take the knowledge we have from before and to try to advance it and correlate it to existing news, and try to show how things connect to one another. So one of the things we do even more now is actually try to expose certain lies and certain patterns of deception that repeat themselves.
So do you think that the site is... do you think it's still apt to call it Boycott Novell? Because, I mean, one thing you said is in the direction of the project is to not only focus on Novell, but to focus on other organizations that you feel are maligning open source and the goals of open source. I mean, do you think it would be fairer to Novell to change the name of the website?
I was thinking about this around April, and I was going to actually do that. I didn't choose the name of the site. And one of the people, or actually several people, who were involved in the site, and I did ask them, in the conversation in the IRC channel, what would they think about it? And the answers were, that we should keep the same name because Novell actually stays as a company for the time being. So, although the focus itself is pretty much actually it's a lot broader now than it was at the start, because there isn't much to talk about on the same issues. The site's name and the site's goal pretty much remains the same. So I suppose people also recognize the site by the name.
So you say that the site's goal pretty much remains the same from the start of the project, but I believe the Boycott Novell... Sorry?
It's not as though the issue was resolved. So I suppose I suppose to actually treat the mission, or to treat the certain... In this case, what we actually try to do in these circumstances, to either try to break out the deal with Microsoft, the implications of the patents, or to cause Novell to have a situation where it just kind of tries to free the SUSE project and have it disengage from the entire issue. And that hasn't happened yet. So